All right, I think we are back. Sorry about that. Some technical difficulties with my steak. So welcome to the third. Wow, that is a really creepy look, Baz. Could you just not? Are you frozen?
No.
Oh, I was like, wow, that's super creepy. So welcome to the third Gigantic Community Council. Our the number of people that signed up and the number of people that showed up, not really one and the same. But hey, we're gonna have fun tonight. If you guys want to get involved, I'll give you 47 and a half seconds from when you hear this. I put my hand up so I can identify. Join us, ts.ggunleashed.com, TeamSpeak 3. And I'm going to eat this last piece of steak.
All right, cool. So, topics we're going to be talking about going to be esports, which is awesome. I'm excited for that. Tim's chowing down on that steak that he made, and we did just see your hand just now. A1 sauce apparently is a playing factor in this steak.
It is amazing.
He has his Motiga mug behind him and his gigantic shirt. So I'm wearing a shirt that says Techies.
Yeah, not even good enough.
Oh, I have
So.
a sword at least. Does that count?
That's weird. So,
Right.
let's see here. So yeah, tonight we were going to talk about esports, but I've decided not to,
Wow, thanks, Tim.
just to piss off Baz. So tonight instead we're going to talk about the possibilities of Gigantic becoming a MMO.
The PvE scene.
Sweet.
And my sweet facial hair. It's amazing.
I'm not sure. You kind of look like I don't know.
Lumberjack, bro, I'm going to...
Thing going on.
Yeah, dude. It's awesome. All right, so let's see here. We'll just get started with the group of us. So we are going to talk about esports. We're also going to talk about something that actually Kennedy and I talked about this afternoon, and that's the role that streams play in the esports world. So it's all going to tie into that esports kind of topic. So let's get started, and I'm going to come to you last, Baz, but South, what do you think of esports in general?
It's a blossoming market, I guess you could call it, or a blossoming type industry. I kind of like the way that Dota's done it, in the sense that they've crowdsourced a lot of their prize pools, but I don't know. It's still very early. You know, with regular sports, you got different TV markets with ESPN, very choosy. Like when you look at college football and things like that, you got different TV markets. And you're talking about it in relation to streaming. I think streaming is a global TV market, so it's kind of weird.
Do you think Gigantic can play a part in the esports community, just from what you've seen?
Definitely, a huge one.
What about you, Zap? Helps if I unmute my mic.
Uh, huh. Personally, I think with esports right now, obviously it's still a growing thing, and I think it's growing a lot faster than people may expect at times. And it's kind of make or break. I mean, if you look at Smite being a third-person perspective game, it's not really comfortable to the user to watch Smite, considering I play Smite a lot. So I think with Gigantic to have a good shot at becoming a successful esport, it's going to need a really comfortable view that's natural to the game, but natural to the viewing experience. But besides that, I think Gigantic actually will stand a pretty good chance at becoming a pretty popular esport, especially from fast-paced combat and everything like that.
Kennedy, what's your take on this?
We're just taking on esports in general, or in gigantic esports. Well, esports
Well,
in general.
segue.
We'll mix into it. I'll mix it together. Esports in general and stuff. It's obviously a very young industry that we're in right now. So young that the major esports scene is only the pro scene. We don't really have that implementation into like the high school or anything like that, especially when your high schoolers are your pros. Which brings into the interesting thing of it's ever evolving, and we see it being done in multiple different ways. We see game fails and we see games succeed, and it brings up the question of really what causes that, and what does Gigantic have to do in order to make their esports scene stand out and actually be successful? Because we know there's like Counter-Strike out there, and it's semi-successful. The fighting scene's semi-successful. Then League of Legends is obviously huge, and so is Dota. So look for what does GG Unleash? Or wow, what does GG Unleash? What
It's
is
the best gigantic website ever created. But thanks for asking.
What does Gigantic itself need to do? And I think this is what we all need to look at: is what does it need to do in order to actually be a enjoyable, watchable experience? That's the number one thing you need to look at when it comes to esports.
So then we'll ask this in general to whoever wants to speak. I'm assuming it's going to be Baz because you can see it. He's getting this twitch. What makes an enjoyable experience to watch an esport?
So first of all, you want to make sure that the game is watchable. Like others have stated, there is a huge problem with a lot of games that kind of go too far with the graphics and the pixels and all this other stuff. Like if you look at games like Smite, Guild Wars 2, League of Legends, even Dota 2 at times, it's really hard for newer players and newer viewers to actually see what's going on. Like I tried really, really hard to kind of press a lot of these issues in certain communities, because it's something that if you can't really understand what's going on, then you're not going to be able to really enjoy the game unless you've played it. Now, I am a huge fan of Dota 2, and I love watching the pros, and I love watching them play, but I understand the game. And someone like my wife, for example, is going to be like, I just see colors. I have no idea what's going on. So I think for Gigantic to be successful as an esport in terms of visibility, that we definitely need that, free cam spectator mode rather than something that's like behind the character, just kind of following them around, a lot like what Guild Wars 2 does. It's really, really hard to see what's going on because there's so much movement, there's so much things going on the screen, and a lot of times you're really close up. So if we have the free cam that Smite allows the spectators to actually do, plus fixed points on towers and characters, that's a good building block in terms of how things can actually be viewed in terms of making sure it's an enjoyable sport to watch.
So I don't play Smite, but you say they have a cam on their towers?
Yeah, the way the spectator in Smite works is it's actually probably one of the best in terms of spectator modes, because they allow for free cam. You can go like top down. You can go free cam, which zooms in, zooms out. You can control the camera speed and all that. They have set points on towers, set points on like the fire giant and certain big interactions in the map. And they also have a camera that follows the character around, and you can do a 360 motion, zoom in and out whenever you need to. So it gives the casters so much control that if people want to see a top-down view of this giant team fight, they can instantly switch to that camera, zoom into certain points, zoom back out, go to the tower, get another different angle. Whereas in games like Guild Wars 2, it's literally just points set with really, really poor position cameras, which they haven't changed, and I'm not sure why. And then they also have the only camera perspective is through behind the actual player, and it's really hard to see. So I think Smite does it best. It's funny that I've used examples of Smite doing it really good in like a third party kind of MOBA genre, because they actually do a lot of things really, really good.
Longest yes or no question ever.
You asked.
I did. So we've seen gigantic gameplay. There aren't towers per se. There are creatures. So would the camera be fixed on those creatures in a way that you could see that area?
Probably just little areas where you can summon the creature.
So
any point of interest would be good to capture.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And get from a strategic point of view. What you've got to do, I think, to build an audience is, well, I mean, like you were saying, Baz, when you enjoy Dota, but like if your wife was to look at it, it's just a bunch of colors. It's the same way with a football game. If you don't understand the sport, you just see a bunch of dudes running around on the field throwing around the ball.
Well, I mean, at least in football, you can go, okay, they threw the ball, they got to the other end of the field, people are cheering, so obviously that means something. In Dota, everyone goes in, blows all their cooldowns, everyone's like, ah! And the new player's going to be like, what just happened?
So we need the ability to draw on the screen.
What? Yeah,
That would be cool.
incoming dicks. Here we go.
Whoa,
Yeah, but I
whoa,
mean
whoa,
that would
That
definitely be
happens a
cool.
lot in Dota.
whoa! This just got real.
I don't
No,
know.
it does. It does. It
Just
really
got
does.
weird.
That's okay.
Did any of you see not a good game for an example of somebody who actually released it, but did any of you see the concept spectator mode that Firefall had originally come up
Yes.
with, where it allowed dual monitors, so you had
So
one
good.
monitor with the actual game and everything, and the second monitor had like your studio setup where you
Yep.
had like 9 panels of
Yeah.
9 fixed camera positions that you could easily swap to real quick if you wanted to, or swap back and forth back to your freestyle control.
Yeah,
Which
That's
looked
interesting.
amazing as a potential use for shoutcasting and stuff like that, and for controlling the camera.
I
Never
got
came
to
to
test
be,
that,
but
and it was phenomenal. Like the amount of control you had from like you could set different camera angles on like it was ridiculous. So yeah, I would like to see something like that, but that's like they put a lot of time and effort into that and then scrapped it. And I was just like,
That sounds amazing.
why? It does. It
So,
was awesome.
so obviously one of the big points of making Gigantic into an esport is the ability for other people to watch it. Because if people can't watch it, it's just people playing a game, right? So with that in mind, should there be the idea of live commentation in the game? And I ask that question only to segue into this question: couldn't that effectively spoil strategic play in the game?
What do you mean in the game? Are you talking about like shoutcasting versus? I'm actually kind of confused
So
of what
if
you're trying to say.
let's say I'm playing competitively, which would literally never happen, but let's say I'm playing competitively and I'm listening to a commentator mention that I'm doing something at some point. And yes, there is a delay, but with the
Most
size of the
tournaments are going to
map,
be on a 2 minute delay, so
a two
it's
minute,
not going
okay,
to matter. Yeah.
okay, so 2 minutes.
If Smite actually auto implements 180-second delay in their spectator mode, so the game starts, and you have to actually wait 180 seconds. They might have upped it or downed it by now. I'm not sure. But you actually wait that amount of time before you're actually let into the game. So the game's been going on for 180 seconds, but you just got into the
And you're
game
180 seconds behind.
yeah, and then you can also put a delay on your stream. Like what I did when I did shoutcasting for Guild Wars 2 in tournaments, the delay was literally 2 minutes. At one point I was considering 3, but 3 is actually a little bit too long in terms of like interacting with the chat. 2 minutes is usually the good kind of set amount of things. Now, like in LAN tournaments, that's not going to matter because everything's going to be live. Players are going to have either in a soundproof booth or noise canceling headphones or whatever. So it's not going to matter. Um, really, if players are going to want to cheat, then they can go ahead and try. But there's so many tools available to shoutcasters that like they're never going to be able to.
Fair enough. But that, I mean, even with the sheer size of the gigantic map, 180 seconds, just using that as a concept. I've played League once, and Jack in the Box mentions this. 180 does it in League of Legends. I've played like 1.5 games of League of Legends. The map isn't as big as I feel like the gigantic map, and keeping in mind that I haven't played gigantic since July, so a lot of things may have changed. They may have
Right.
changed the size of the map or whatever. But I feel like on the map that we got to play, 180 seconds isn't a huge amount of time to go from where you start to effectively cross the map and make some sort of strategic move. So the question is 180-second delay enough, or would they need more? And what do you think about that, Zap?
Um, that's kind of a tough one. I mean, like you said, the map size and everything, that's going to play kind of a role in it. But that's going to be a lot of trial and error to see what really kind of works for stream-wise. And, I mean, like Pat said, most of the time, if they're doing live esports events, that's all live and there's no cheating when pros are playing League
Yep.
of Legends. Like if you're watching the Worlds right now, they all have the soundproof headphones. That's all heavily monitored, and you're seeing all that instantly. On the small tournament levels, I mean, 180 might be it, but I feel like that's just going to be up to who's streaming it, who's broadcasting it, what they think will be the best way to kind of block out any cheating.
So
Yeah,
Jack just said you can cross the entire map 3 times in League of Legends in 180 seconds.
that sounds about right. Yeah.
I think though, from the perspective of what you're saying about the map being bigger, we have to also look at the fact that what this game is different. I mean, if we look at in terms of pacing for a game, what you do in 3 minutes in League of Legends is probably going to be around the same area than what you do in 3 minutes in Gigantic. It's a much faster paced game from what we've seen and that they've shown us and stuff. So I'm not sure that there's ever an instance where even 30 seconds passes by, you're going to be in the same location or doing the same thing that you just were doing. And if you are, it's most likely the other enemy team already knows you're there because the only reason you're there that long is because you've been fighting it back and forth.
Yeah, the attempt to cheat has become pretty much a detriment at that point. But cheating aside, I think because you're eventually going to get found out at a huge live venue if you try to cheat. You know what I mean? It's not
Well,
going to be a big deal. Cheating aside, I think you kind of have to take it back to basics. Like, what have the previous games who have been successful in the esports community done to position themselves that way? So, like, one that I think is a good one to talk about is StarCraft 2.
Yep.
They've kind of become irrelevant now, just because of some poorly released content. But what they did at the time is they gave their casters an excellent amount of information and a way to get to it.
Yep.
So you could see, what the supply was on each side. You could see what units they had queued up, and there's different things Gigantic could do in that sense that would give the casters the same amount of material to work on.
I really wish Malcor was here because he'd be able to give us more insight on like the map and stuff because he played at PAX, which is probably a more recent version of the game since you played, right, Tim?
I haven't played since July
Okay.
17th.
Okay, well then obviously, I mean they've probably updated it and for PAX. So, I mean, where is Malcor by the way, you little boob? You're supposed to be here. Grr!
Yeah.
If you guys don't mind me hopping in quick.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's really gonna make it break Gigantic as an esport is its announcers, their shoutcasters, because I watch a ton of League of Legends, and I'm trying to get into like watching Dota and stuff, and I've dabbled in StarCraft a little bit, but League of Legends announcers are just on point with everything, and their hype level is just incredible, and it like gets you pumped up watching the game. So that's kind of a big make or break point. It's a lot more entertainment value behind
Oh
their
yeah.
announcers.
Well,
So do
I
people
would
watch it
agree
for
with
the?
that.
Sorry, go ahead, guys.
Do people watch it for the game or to hear the commentation?
Well, the casters are usually very popular streamers, and the streamers go to where the good games are. So if the games have a huge following, they're of course gonna cast. Look at Total Biscuit. Total Biscuit's is a good example.
Well,
There's somebody
I mean,
that started in the
yeah.
StarCraft 2 community and then moved around to different games.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Go ahead.
no. Just like in terms of shoutcasting, like I'm gonna be shoutcasting Gigantic, obviously, because I enjoy it, and I like to think that I'm good at it. Maybe I don't know. But I think that in terms of what people go for the game and like what stream they watch, there are very specific shoutcasters for StarCraft 2 and Dota that I will always watch, no matter what level of game it is, over something else. Like Taste Hostess for StarCraft,
Yeah.
Day9, and whoever. I don't really care. Day9's awesome. I love Total Biscuit, and because he's a deep, sexy voice, and he's fun to listen to. I mean, we also have casters in the StarCraft community like Husky StarCraft, where I just find totally annoying, and his voice is just, it's like nails on a chalkboard. And then we have like in the Dota community, Toby1 is probably the most well known and probably the best shoutcasting color commentary when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I mean, you have your ones that scream and get excited, which is going to be your color commentary, and then you have your analytical casters, which is going to be the people that are very, very knowledgeable about the game. 9 times out of 10 more knowledgeable about the game than the color commentator, because that's their job. Toby1 actually brought something up in one of his Join Dota talks, that you always want your analytic caster to be someone that's a professional player. You don't want someone that just kind of studies spreadsheets and stuff. And 9 times out of 10, shoutcasting teams will always be paired up with a really good color commentator, and then either an ex-pro player of that game or a really, really knowledgeable pro player that's not playing that day. So shoutcast, like the commentators do make or break the scene. I would definitely agree with that, because if they're not entertaining to listen to, and if they're not exciting and they get you pumped up, no one's gonna really care. I mean, that was a big problem, I think, in a couple communities I was in, and like the esports scene just kind of died out, and it's just because there wasn't a lot of really good casters. So I mean,
But you have to consider though that, and I'll take it back to WildStar, and actually I'll incorporate my cousin who's actually in the channel. Jack in the Box is a streamer, and his idea is to engage the community, and the gameplay is kind of the backdrop, right? So he's having fun playing the game. Is that going to be the MO for Gigantic's startup? Because obviously it needs to get a start somewhere.
it'll be both. It'll be
I
both.
think, yeah, I think when you look at the shoutcasters, you've got kind of like 4 things that the casters need, and it may not be just all individually. They each need all 4 things, but the basic idea is that you need entertainment value from them. You need them to be able to analyze a situation after it's happened, and you need to be able to have a prediction ability. And those are the 3 main things you look at. But then the 4th thing is obviously being able to speak fluently. If they really need that one, not both of them. And you usually split the other 3 things, the analyzing situations as well as predicting and entertainment, can be split between what is usually a 2 spectator or a 2 caster pair that usually happens in most games. It's very difficult to cast by yourself solo. It can be very boring at times or frustrating, or you can't catch everything. So I think we definitely we're going to see from the beginning single player casters going out there. They're going to be spectating games as soon as they can.
Yep.
They're going to be meeting up with groups and say, hey, you two are playing together, can I cast your game? They're going to do it. But what we're going to overall see is these casters who start doing that from the individual basis are going to want to find somebody who is the opposite of them or fulfills those requirements that they don't meet, and group up with them so that when they cast a game, it's a much more overall high package of entertainment for the scene.
Yeah,
So
I would definitely agree with that, Ken. I mean, in terms of what Gigantic is going to get popular on, it's definitely going to be streamers. Like, let's be honest here. That is the media now. It's YouTube, probably about 40% now, and about 60% Twitch and streaming and popularity and that kind of crap. So if we can get streamers like Towley and It's Me JP and Total Biscuit to do, I almost said Smite, do Gigantic stuff, that'll be a big deal, because those people are able to, like, they're really the faces of the gaming industry. People like the top channels on Polaris, and we have like Angry Joe, we have like a bunch of other people that have done other things in other communities that always kind of branch off into all those other different things. Is streaming is going to be the number 1 thing that gets this game going. Now, I'm going to stream the game, and whenever open beta comes up, I'm going to be streaming the hell out of it, because I'm just going to enjoy the game, and I enjoy entertaining people. Others are going to try and do it to make money and try and get really popular, and those people will fail, because if you're streaming to win popularity or whatever, you're doing it wrong. You want to stream to help grow the community and make sure that the game itself is growing, and you're doing it for fun. Like, doing it for money is never the way to go. I've done that a couple times, and you just get burnt out and frustrated.
So then let's change gears for a little bit here. Does the current degree of technology, Twitch, Hitbox, OBS, XSplit, open broadcasting software, and I'd love to hear what you think on this, Kyle. Do you think the current technology is it good enough to make Gigantic, in its fast-paced, third-person, Smite-style combat arena game, plausible in the internet arena to be an esport?
I think it does, The only issue is, I mean, I'm definitely looking at streaming the game. I want to play. I want to play competitively because that's how I like to take MOBAs. That's just my personal approach on it. And OBS and XSplit make it really easy. OBS isn't as beginner user friendly as I would say XSplit is, but OBS is a lot more lightweight. But another thing is, um, PC usage. Like, are people really gonna? You can tell Gigantic's gonna have this awesome art style. It's gonna have a pretty hefty amount of graphics. Are people's computers gonna be able to handle that? Like, people not planning on streaming. Like, I'm planning on streaming, so I'm working on having my computer up to that quality to stream Gigantic at hopefully the highest quality. So that's gonna be hit or miss on how many people are actually streaming the game at launch of the game. And
But do you think that Gigantic, or rather Motiga, should consider incorporating some sort of tool into their game itself that would enable
No.
streaming?
No.
No,
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 not
no,
at all.
not even.
Smite did it, and it's that
So
runs
bad.
so
So
bad.
bad.
And
Okay,
I've
but-
tried out a couple games that just runs terrible, and I would
Alright.
choose OBS any day over any built-in game system.
Mhm.
With that being said, though, let's look at Dota 2 and with their ability to spectate different games and view data in the game as it happens. I think it would be very cool if Gigantic maybe put out a tool, I don't know, call it Spectate, where you could download it and you could watch certain games that were going on, and you wouldn't even need to have the game installed, and you just have the Spectate tool. You could watch the game and get certain information, especially when it comes to tournaments and things like that. That would be very cool.
Or even kind of how League does it when you first log in and you're at the homepage. It has just that setup of high-ranked player games going on constantly, where you can just hop in and spectate a game instantly and do whatever you really want. You have, I think, the 180 delay is what they do for that too.
Also, this, I mean, if you had like this tool that you could download separate from Gigantic the game, you could do like tournament settings, and you could sell passes to tournaments, and there's a whole host of different things you could do. But I think it would really enable the streamers to or casters to really be able to cover the games a lot better.
So,
Oh, go ahead, Tim.
no, by all means.
I mean, in terms of information, like I haven't played, so I don't know like what actually comes into like gameplay. But when I was interviewing Malachor, he basically said that the game kind of boiled down to you spawn, you do things, you get to the little control points, you push out, then that weird cool thing happens where the Guardians come at each other, and then the game's over. So like it doesn't feel to me that you're gonna need all this like gold per minute and oh my gosh, look at all these kills, and like it doesn't feel to me that the game needs all that information because it's so visual. And just kind of watching the gameplay videos, I think that the art style will lead to giving us more information rather than trying to pull up, the gold charts and the casters trying to explain heavily in depth on what's actually going on.
So
But
should
there's
the
gotta
game
be
Twitch
some
itself or
information,
stream
right?
itself,
Say again, Tim?
game itself, lead to a degree of commentation?
I don't think so.
I just noticed what Shimmy said in chat, like how Smite plays their high-res employees' Twitch streams during the client, where you can just watch it while you're in Smite waiting for a match or something. One thing I think Motiga should not do is high-res in their Smite channel, because I
Oh,
think that
sweet
just
lord, no.
bogs down the streaming community. That makes me not want to stream Smite because they already got everyone watching them. Like how, like I got 3 people watching me, and it's usually my friends. So
Oh,
that's not that
I agree.
entertaining to me. So
So
I mean, it would be cool if they just grabbed a random Gigantic channel from Twitch and then put it up, even if
Like
that person only
hosted
has
it?
2. Yeah, like
Yeah,
hosted
just
it, like,
host stuff. That's
at
actually a
random,
really good idea,
like,
dude.
this
that
is
would be cool, but not
this
like them
is-
doing it themselves and like their employees. Go ahead,
this
Kennedy,
is
I'm sorry.
no, it's all right. I mean, this is a little off topic from esports in regards to that, but I understand what we come from there. When their Smite originally came out and did their 24-hour stream thing, those of us who had been streaming, those of us who were doing things, we
Yeah.
were a little put off by it.
A little?
We definitely felt like that feeling that they took away from the community, they took the power away from the community, and everyone was directed there. And if you weren't on there, you weren't going to be known or be big or anything like that. And yeah, it does seem to sacrifice your community's freedom to build up their side of it a bit.
Mhm.
On the other hand, that has been one of the most successful things that Hi-Rez did for their game, and has made it hugely noticed on Twitch, and has brought in tons of people, and has actually done really well for them at the same time. So while it did tear down and remove some of the community connection stuff, it also was a great advertisement tool for them when you look back at it and see how it did. So it's almost like you have to really be careful and looking at it and going, well, how much is taking away too much from the community, and how much is beneficial to the company itself and getting people playing the game. It's a very fine line, and Smite went hardcore one way, and it's done well for them. I'm not sure if that's the best way or not for Gigantic. They maybe figure out their own thing in regards to it, but
I think you hit the nail on the head, Kennedy. And I think this is something that we've forgotten as a community. At the core of this, it is a game. We're here to have fun. We're here to do this. They're making a game. It's a business.
Mm-hmm.
At the root of this whole thing, Motiga is a revenue-generating business. So they've got to take what avenues they can, and it's a balance. It's an extreme balance to balance between revenue generation, and I can't hold my other hand up. So just imagine this is the other hand of balancing the community and keeping the community engaged, where they don't feel like all we're trying to do is money grub, right? That whole pay to win kind of philosophy is something, especially with a competitive game, they have to walk a fine line on. But Kennedy, you nailed it on the head, because they have got to make money. This isn't free. It's not free to make a game by any stretch of the imagination. And the hopes that it becomes an eSports and a successful esport, and we all believe that it will, leads to the consideration from the community is how much do we turn the other cheek for in regards to things like what Hi-Rez did with their streaming. And I think Google Translate got what Shimmy was saying correct. I don't correct me if I'm wrong, but why complain about something like that? Because it is their client, it is their ability to do things.
Right. No, I mean that's fair. Lauren actually brought up something that's actually a good point. He's saying that Loda. Wow.
Did you just
Dota-
combine the two?
I did.
Lord of the
Dota
Toda?
and- yeah, League of Legends, Dota, and Smite is something that we shouldn't be comparing Gigantic to. It should be like Counter-Strike Go, Team Fortress, and other shooters, which I would definitely agree with. But the reason we're comparing them in terms of an esports scene is because they're the ones that are doing it correctly to get themselves noticed in the esports community. It's taking Counter-Strike Go a long time to get recognized, and even then, I don't really consider it that much of an entertaining sport, because it's really the same thing over and over and over again, and there really isn't a lot of like meta or like, I don't know, things to like understand, which does make it a really good sport. I think first-person shooters make probably the best esports, because it's just, oh, he shot this guy, this team has more points than that team, so they win. But in terms of getting a community around esports and bringing it up, I don't think that first-person shooters right now are the correct example.
Well, it's Twitch versus Strat, and we'd much rather see Strat emphasized, I think.
Yeah, it's a fine line, because CSGO has done a really, really good job at pushing themselves into the scene, but they started off really, really bad. And so, like, an example to use them is really hard, because I haven't really followed any first-person shooter esports since, like, Unreal Tournament, to be quite honest with you. So
Yeah,
I love Unreal Tournament. Let's play some
Quake
Unreal.
2 for me.
So actually, it's
yeah.
interesting that you mentioned that, is because at work today we were actually talking about Quake 3 Arena, and I don't know how old anyone that's watching this or how long you guys have been involved in games online, but in 1996, when Quake 1 was popular, there was a game, a mod for it that we all know today, and a lot of people believe that Half-Life created, uh, is Team Fortress and its subsequent Mega Team Fortress. It was a Quake 1 mod. It came out long before DirectX was even a thing.
It was an awesome mod too.
It was the best. It was the best way to play Quake. But we're digressing off the topic. Games like Quake, even Battlefield 1, Battlefield 2, or Battlefield 1942, Battlefield Vietnam, those games had an esports degree. One that was like Cal League and TWL and leagues that don't exist anymore. Thank you, honey. That don't exist anymore, but they really kind of launched this esports genre. There was money in that. But esports wouldn't be what it is today, I don't think, if it wasn't for that.
No, Tim, you are completely right. The way, like, brief history. Just I'll be short, I promise. So
I doubt that.
No, I will. So esports pretty much started off of Quake and those really old games. It was kind of like a underground porn industry where like it was like no seriously.
All right, guys, thanks for coming.
No, okay, no.
Esports and porn. Huh?
I know, right? It's a good.
I'm definitely going pro now.
So the reason I say that is because it was really underground. Like it was kind of like a secretive thing.
What kind of porn do you watch?
I'm the amateur.
I'm talking about like that was a poor comparison. Whatever. You know what I'm trying to say? Maybe not. I don't know.
No.
Anyway,
I would call your wife and go hug her or something.
Okay. Anyway. So what I was trying to say is esports back then was kind of like an underground industry. So it was. No, I'm completely off topic. I appreciate that, guys. It started off in Quake, and it kind of grew through Counter-Strike and Halo, StarCraft 1, Brood War, Warcraft 3 even kind of played a role in that kind of area. But as it's evolved, people have gotten smarter and learned that first-person shooters are a dime a dozen, and no one wants to see it anymore. Which is one of the reasons why League of Legends, Dota, Smite, StarCraft still is very, very relevant. Even Hearthstone, for some stupid reason, is an esport. I still cannot wrap my mind around that. But if it's entertaining and people will pay money for it, it'll be an esport no matter what game it is.
Fair enough.
But the only thing, I agree. If it's entertaining, people will pay money to watch it, or people are watching it, people are streaming it, the word gets out, it would be an esport. But it's going to reach that point where Motiga is going to have to decide, are they going to really push it to make it one of the top esports, or are they going to just let it stay at the level they have it? Because, League and Dota pushed it and put their production quality, they put a lot of work into that.
Yeah.
Like, watching League of Legends is like watching ESPN of esports sometimes. Like, it's insane the production value they're putting into that, and that's something Motiga will have to choose at one point or another. If they think it's going to return money, and they're not going to think they're going to lose a lot of money. League of Legends took the risk, and it just ended up working out for them. Because I don't play the game anymore, but I watch it, and there's a lot of people that just watch it and don't play it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that can be said for StarCraft too. I mean, people count it out like, oh, StarCraft only gets 40,000 views per tournament. I'm like, that's still 40,000 people watching it. I mean, people watch like
people watch the fish play Pokemon.
People watch Fish plays Pokemon. Like that's people will watch anything if it's entertaining, and Gigantic definitely has that entertainment value. So I don't think that saying that Gigantic won't become a spectator sport or an entertainment sport is correct. I think that it'll become an esport, but it's not going to launch off the way people maybe think. Like I think some people's mindset might be, okay, well, this game's just going to blow up and go crazy. No, we have to start where everyone else started, which was pretty much at the bottom of the barrel and work our way up.
So
starting off season 1.
Oh, hold on. So Baz just put out the good point there. And I think that's the biggest detriment that comes to most games now, partially due to League of Legends and Dota's success, in a sense that we have to remember it is a new game, a new community, and a new fresh start. Too often do gamers come in and they want to go, this game's competitive. This game better be esports. Let's go. Pro scene now. $500 cash prize. Sure, whatever. Give me everything you can. And they push and push, they push. And when are they pushing? Oh, we're still in closed beta.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's just sort of like, it hurts it almost to a degree. It's like there's a point where, and it's hard to find, and it's hard to question on where it is and when it hurts it, when it benefits it. But sometimes we try to push as gamers, we try to push what we want too early. And we like, well, we want esports. Well, as soon as we got spectator mode, we're going full blast with tournaments. And that can be dangerous. And it's essence that if the game's unbalanced, you've caused a lot of problems there. It's going to be not fun to watch. If the spectator client is still fresh and not well created, then we're going to have problems there. You got bad casters who don't really know the game because they've only gotten to play 2 weeks when they picked it up. We're going to have problems there. So we have to really be careful as a community not to start esports too early and try to go full blast with it.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So
it really is.
So that needs to be watched out for, because that's what's caused many games to fail, because in regards to the esports scene is because they just tried to take off with it before the game had even launched, before the game was even near ready for an esports scene.
So let me ask this question then to the group. And South, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Should Motiga start, or rather develop before they release, to be an esports game, or should they launch to be a game that becomes an esport?
They should launch to be a game that becomes an esport. I mean, we got to find our place first.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not just, you can't just make a game to be an esport, because I feel like games have tried that. They've copied League, they've copied Dota, and it just doesn't really work. Like, if you're shooting out to be an esport, it's not, people aren't going to be like, oh yeah, this game's an esport. People want to be like, oh, this game's awesome. Let's watch this competitive. Let's make this an esport. And that's kind of, you just got to let it happen. It's mostly on perfect timing with the community and everyone kind of being on par for it to slowly, gradually pick up. And that's what's really going to turn it into an esport.
So develop for fun?
Yeah, develop for fun. Now, with that being said, there are certain cues that they can take from successful esports that they can kind of implement now in preparation for that. But I definitely think the focus needs to be on fun. The focus needs to be on making this enjoyable. And then we'll kind of find our fit. You know what I mean? See where we fit in, and then expand from there.
There was a Reddit post not too long ago. I'm trying to find it, but I can't. So I apologize to the Reddit user for not giving you credit. But I mean, he goes into, what would you want to see Gigantic launched as? Fun, balanced, or competitive? And most of the responses were fun or balanced, because you can't have a esport if the game is not fun or balanced. Those two things need to happen before we even think about doing anything in the competitive scene.
So then we should stop talking about Gigantic as an esport.
No.
Yep, nope. This is the last time we will ever talk with Baz about Gigantic as an esport.
I'll be upset too.
It's a good thing to talk about it as an esport, because we're able to hash out problems that we've seen from other communities and not bring them into this. We're able to plan out things accordingly. We're able to talk to developers and say, hey, if you guys want this to be a spectator sport, which they've stated before, then this, and this needs to happen first, or else nothing is going to come of it. Obviously, number one, the game needs to be released. It needs to be fun. It needs to be balanced. After that, the esports scene or the competitive scene, I don't want to call it an esports scene right away, because it needs to be a spectator scene, whatever you want to call it. So spectator mode needs to be released, and then pretty much kind of go from there.
Hold on, I lost my train of thought. I was gonna say something.
Yeah, we don't have to stop talking about it, but it may be too early to start making calls on which way it should go.
Well, and that's the thing. Like we have to remember, and this is the thing in development side of it that people often forget. I'm not saying any of us in here do, or anybody in chat, but people often forget that a development team doesn't consist of everybody doing one task. So the tools for esports and stuff like that, they may have someone eventually set aside specifically for that, and because they don't need them also developing a character, because guess what? They may not be an artist to develop characters. They may be a UI person. They've completed the UI, so now they're working on a spectator UI and stuff like that. So as far as development of the systems come, is there are going to be people who will be eventually allocated to that if they don't need them in other areas, and that's perfectly fine. So we don't need to get into that situation of, well, the game's not completely finished yet, why are you even bothering with esports? And that's the same question other people are going, and other things like, oh, why are you developing new heroes? They need to put everybody on the balance team, because for some reason every single developer is a balance team member suddenly, according to the forum warriors. So we have to remember that aspect. And in terms of the starting process of how well it goes, we keep referring to Smite, and I'm actually thinking back at it, how they did theirs. And the reason why I look at Smite is because they're semi-successful, and League of Legends and Dota kind of fell into their spots. So Smite actually had to struggle to put their way out there. And something I remember is the community was obviously the front-going people. They ran their own tournaments. They did their own things for quite a while. And high-res studios just kind of set back. They gave a couple gems here and there every once in a while for the big events. And then when high-res felt their game was ready to become the official esports scene for them, then they came in and had their whole plan laid out of what they were going to do. But that wasn't until they thought they were ready. Up until that point, they let the community just build up themselves slowly.
And I think, we were talking about this a little bit, and I think, I'm not sure who said we shouldn't be looking at Smite, Dota, League as
That was
esports.
Lordrum from Anook.com.
So Lormrin, I hack his name intentionally at this point. I think that he's correct, but I think we missed one major thing, and we talked about this in the beginning of the show, is we can't look at specific titles as esports. What we need to do is we need to look at sports after the E, right? Sports are what people watch. Sports are massively successful genre of entertainment. Granted, I think dude, isn't it sexy facial hair, Narwhal? Tom's joining us. It's amazing. Anyways, it's my gigantic facial hair, launch day hair. But I think that if we look at sports as a whole and what sports do to entertain people, and I think a lot of it is commentation. If you've ever gone to a football game or a baseball game, it's fun to watch the game. But when you sit back and you hear what's going on, and you hear stats and analytical information about the game, I think that changes the dynamic of the experience 100-fold. So whenever Gigantic becomes let me finish real quick, South, and then I'll let you chime in. I think if Gigantic takes this, there needs to be a degree of available analytics about specific teams, whether it's pulled from the actual database of Gigantic, or if it's something that we see a website putting together, GG Unleashed, or Reddit, or one of the fan sites that I'm sure will creep up in the next while. Should it be the responsibility of Motiga to make that information available? I think so.
That. I mean,
But
Dota does that really well, too.
Right, but making the information available, but how much of that information? Specific player stats? And I know League of Legends, you can't see how many losses you have, right?
I don't play
I
the
don't
game
play League.
anymore. I play.
I don't think you do.
Right.
You just see your wins.
But I think that's a miss, for example. That's cookie cutter. That's Candy Crush. You should know how much a player has lost or won, or we know how much the Cowboys destroyed the Seahawks and by how many points yesterday.
Well, they do have that though. They have their pro site has their teams wins and losses and who they played against, who they won, and who they lost against, and so it all actually is there in terms of that stats. But that's because they've got a scene developed.
Right. So, South. I'm sorry, I was long-winded there. What did you have to say, buddy?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that all right. Well, if you're dropping the E and we're looking at sports, um, the great commentation or the great commentators have grown up around these sports. It's not like the commentators were there first. And while you're right, a great commentator makes um, a great spectacle, a great thing to watch. You can take the greatest commentator in the world and you can put him with bowling, and it's just not going to work out. I mean,
Bowling.
You have to have the
Bowling.
sport there
That's your
first.
example.
Yeah,
Chinese checkers.
Take any kind of sport that's not really huge on spectating, and you'll see what I'm saying. But it's kind of one of those things where you have to have the sport there first, and then once you do, you kind of grow your commentating around it.
Which leads to the topic of create a game that's fun and balanced before you
Yes.
create an esport.
So
Yes.
I actually want to dive in real quick to one of your points, Tim. You said that they need to put player stats and information on like available for casters and things. Dota does this really well at their like huge big events like the internationals, and sometimes in some of the other major tournaments they have like little notifications that come up in game, like trivia and stats. Like Dendy has played Invoker 97 times and won 98 of those games in major tournaments or whatever. So that actually happens a lot in Dota. That the casters are able to do that. The spectators that are adminning the game are able to kind of put those things in there. So I think that if Motiga gives us the tools, then yeah, I mean that's something that definitely needs to happen because it's a lot of fun. Like everyone else was saying, to sit back and watch a football game on TV. Because I personally hate watching sports, but like if I watch it on TV and I have someone relaying information, so I better understand the game better, not just commentating, but just like stats and saying, well, this player grew up in New Jersey and they owned a pink teddy bear. Like that's cool because it allows you to make yourself feel a bit more personable with the player and with the team.
Kind of like how if you ever watch the Little League World Series, like
Right.
kids don't really have that many stats, but they're like, oh, this kid's favorite thing is talking to girls. Like it's just funny stuff, but it catches your attention. It makes you go, oh, I might watch this a little bit longer.
So I don't know how many of you remember the game Global Agenda, but and it's just because it's referencing to my mind if I remember. But they released their API and allowed people to use that for the game. And someone I forget what his name was and who he was, but he came up with like a Global Agenda stats site, and you could go there and you input your name and it pulls up your name and it's like, and it would show you 100 wins, 200
Yep.
losses, 70% of the time you played as the assault class. In the assault class, you've got 50 wins and 30 losses or whatever, and then like with the 97% accuracy on your aim, and you and it would list like your most used ability and stuff like that. Basically, all that statistical data that's kept back into the system regarding your player data, that site would use the API and pull that data and then leave it out there for a record, and it would even give you like a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star ranking for each of your classes that you played and stuff like that. And it would be kind of cool if
Nice, Tim.
I missed something.
Look at the Twitch stream. Sorry.
That's awesome.
So it'd be kind of cool if Gigantic started off with giving this opportunity for the community with the API seed and stuff, and allow that API and see what the community does with it before Gigantic puts too much effort into something with it themselves, and allow the community to comb through stats and create their own visual representation of players to be able to utilize that information.
So that should be built into the game then. That should be an API that's available to anybody or something that they put out.
To anybody. I mean,
And
yeah.
we have to parse it.
Usually you start off, usually you're going to have to start off because it takes resources for an API, for API calls and stuff.
Sure.
So usually they have people sign up for it and early on and things like that in order to utilize it and give them special keys, because you have to get a specific key to use an API usually. So
I know South is really big into the technologies of the world. Would Motiga putting out an API and pre-parsing the information make it easier to make that information available to your users, South? Or should it be something that would be post-parsed based on how you want that information?
Yeah. Just give us access to the information, and then we'll parse it how we want.
kind of like how WildStar does add-ons. They have their API and their like Alua, whatever you want to call it, system available to the public, and the community just makes things. And obviously, Carbine has to look at all of them and make sure that they're not cheating or hacking the game. But
That wasn't the case in beta.
well,
You make it as
yeah.
open as possible, and you give people the most information you can, and then you plug holes where you need to.
So
Yeah, I
you
mean,
give
like,
them a
it's-
noose and let them hang themselves with it until you
Sure.
find it.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I mean, that's a horrible metaphor, but it's a good metaphor at the same time. I mean, Dota does this with DotaBuff.com or whatever the hell the website's called, where like you can track individual Steam accounts and stuff like that for Dota and everything. So, an API wouldn't be that bad, honestly. I think it'd be a good thing. I know that Kennedy. Do you remember how much we pushed Hi-Rez to release the API to us before because they wouldn't do it because they were worried about issues, and they did it, and it just improved the esports scene and just the game in general because people were able to actually track stats and kind of figure out what strategies worked and stuff.
I don't remember how long it was. I mean, the biggest thing with the API is the resource usage on the team's end of it stuff, and how much, because their servers are basically at that point then pumping data out to you.
Yep.
And it has to be set up and prepared correctly so that it's not stressing their systems too much.
So would it be real
causing
time?
them-
Or a dump at the end of the night?
It's usually pretty. It's not usually a dump. I mean, but it could be. It could push out because they do API calls. So, for instance, if anybody uses TweetDeck for Twitter, that's an API system, and it pulls the information, say once every minute or once every 30 seconds, and you can kind of switch it and set it and stuff. Those every single time it does that, it's pulling all the information from the server, so they can set it to how they want to. I think once a day is kind of too low, but maybe if the data kind of came out once an hour starting off, they may just give different people different levels depending on how much they're using it or how useful it becomes, and they remove people who aren't using it.
Yeah,
Right.
it all depends on like their capability for servers and finances and stuff. So it really all kind of depends on their end.
So, go ahead, Seth.
Go ahead, Tim.
No, I said go ahead first.
Well, I was gonna say you could do it real time. Like they say, it just depends on resources. But
Yep.
I don't see it as an issue as far as getting a leg up on anybody. It just gives you more information to give to people who are watching.
Yep. I mean, yeah, API has never really been used to cheat or anything in like tournaments. As
No,
far
it's
as
just
I know.
informational. I mean, it's
Yeah, it's just information.
so, and I think that's one of the things that we have to wonder is this even something that this early into the game that Motiga is considered, and maybe we're the catalyst for that consideration.
It's not needed when the game launches, but it's definitely something nice to have probably 6 or 7 months down the road after the game goes live.
So
I would
Narwhal,
disagree,
hold on one
though.
second though, Kennedy. I want to bring something up because Narwhal from Reddit just brought up something, and I do apologize, but it's an interesting topic when other players can see your stats. Look at World of Warcraft or another game where there's a degree of competitive DPS, right? You look at a player's skills, or you look at a player's gear and say, oh, you're not geared enough, you're not coming. The same is true when forming some of these pickup groups. If you can see another player's stats, that can play negative on your entertainment value of the game.
Well, I mean, in terms of that, if you're queuing solo, you don't have any choice of who you're queued with unless the matchmaking system just wants to, flip you the bird and just give you brand new players or whatever. So, I mean, in terms of that, okay, cool. But the API system will also allow people and teams that are trying to find competitive players to say, okay, well, link us your account. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I have 100 wins and 0 losses. And they really have 100 losses and 0 wins. So, I mean, I think in terms of looking at players' stats, you're always going to have EP, and that's always going to be a problem. I mean, I think that as a community, we need to kind of snuff that out indefinitely.
I don't know. I think on the perspective that if we're looking at this in terms of esports and trying to provide a tool out there for people to use for esports without it becoming detrimental to the general populace and their playing, then I think you can kind of bring it down and boil it down to, well, the only stats that get pushed out there are maybe the solo rank stats get pushed out there, or maybe not even them, and only do it the team ranked Q stats or whatever, because it doesn't make sense actually to put out all your stats out there overall for just your regular general populace play, because that's random Q and all that stuff, and it's just general, sometimes just for fun and goofing around, and those stats may not reflect things properly. But if you could maybe, in order to reduce that aggravation that it might cause some people, is make it related, since we're talking esports, is just the teams, people who are registered with a team and they queue up with their team for a team ranked play. Those are the people that you're actually wanting stats on. You want the stats on those players from their actual play time on a team during a team versus team fight, because that's when their stats is actually important, and that's what the caster is going to want to pull up. I don't want to know how you did in regular play. I want to know how your stat is during team versus team play of an actual match like that, because that's what really is important to pull up and see.
So I actually just looked at the time here. We are approaching that hour mark. So we'll give it we'll go to the 10-minute mark, I think so. So about 8 more minutes to kind of close off any more topics. So let's hear from Kyle. You've been quiet for the last little bit. What's your thoughts on this?
A lot, I guess you could say. I mean, I think we hit a lot of major points, and I think it's going to be a bit of trial and error. But a couple of things I want to point out that I didn't get to say earlier was one thing I don't want to see I want to see good balance, but I don't want to see heroes die off. Like we already see heroes like Vodin and like awesome heroes instantly coming out, and I don't want to see like down the road, a year down the road, that competitive playing esport players just aren't using those people anymore. Like you watch League, you don't see Ash, you don't see any really of the original heroes get played, or anyone. They just become useless at a point. That's something I want Motiga to try and stay away from, but that is a challenging thing when you start hitting like hundreds and over hundreds of heroes.
Damn it,
And
Tim.
and one more thing was what was the last thing? I don't know. Someone else can pick it up.
South, what are your final thoughts this evening?
Oh, sorry, I was typing.
That's cool.
I think it's exciting to talk about esports. I think it's way too early to kind of make a determination on how it should be handled when it comes to gigantic. But I see a lot of potential, and it's one of those things where, for me personally, first person spectation has never or spectator mode is never really made for an interesting thing for me. But it all depends on it. Well, I don't know. There's a whole lot of different variables that go into it. I'm just really interested to see what kind of game gigantic becomes as far as competition, and we'll go from there, I guess.
So I accidentally clicked the wrong button on UBAZ. So apparently you're timed out for 600 seconds. So if you want to say anything, just say it out loud. Kennedy, what about you? What are your... Sorry, you cleared the chat the first night. You just sit there and shut up.
All right, fine. That's fair.
Kennedy, what about you tonight, buddy?
I think you kind of hit the head on the nail for one thing, Darius.
I'm sorry for the nail. Did I hit it head on the nail?
Oh yeah.
Well, where is your other hand?
That seems painful.
Wow.
But anyways, if we'll get done some point. I think when we're looking at how the esports scene should evolve, I really would like for the community to really observe. If you don't watch sports, I guess it's kind of hard for you, but for anybody who's grew up around like sports and have watched sports for a long time, and really maybe start looking and analyzing how they do their stuff, how their commenting goes, what they show on the screen, and really look at that and see how we as a community can bring about that actual sport feeling to Gigantic itself. And that I think League of Legends is doing a great job with it in general. I think Dota's coming that they're doing some. Smite has like the little ticker at the bottom, which is awesome. They're doing stuff, but I would really like to see. I don't think we're quite there to that ESPN quality level of of a sport match that we're watching, and I would like to see us try to mimic that or bring about that feeling.
All right, Patrick, you have 13 seconds. Go.
I mean, Ken actually brings up a good point, because if we're not at that production value and quality, then it's not going to be enjoyable for the users to watch. I know me personally, I'm in the process of getting a lot of assets done for tournaments and stuff, so we can share it across the community and allow everyone, not just myself, because it's unfair if we try and compete with other tournaments, because that's not what a community is about. It needs to be about supporting everyone's tournaments, no matter if you don't like them or if you think their shoutcasting is bad or whatever. So I think that if we all can grow and kind of stick with our whole community presence and kind of family aspect, I think that that'll grow the scene a lot faster than anything else that we can do individually.
So I think, and that's perfect segue into the closing. I think that's the biggest thing, and I run GG Unleashed, but that's just one kind of drop in the bucket of the community. And I think as we progress and we develop as a community, we need to, because this obviously leads to a toxic environment, we need to realize that we're here for fun. That's the base of this. Sports are fun. The players have fun. They do things that are fun. If we start taking this to a degree of toxicity, the community breaks down. The degree in which esports becomes a competitive playfield breaks down a little bit more. So I think you hit the nail on the head. Is I will gladly embrace at GG Unleashed. I'll gladly embrace a Nook, the Reddit, Gigantic Hub, any fan sites that come up, and I think that's a mentality that we need to kind of help foster as a community. I'm not sad. What's up, reality? There, it's happy face. But I think one of the biggest things that we can take away from this is there's already a community that's been developed around this game. There's websites that have been popping up. The Reddit is on fire. They have 833 subscribers, which is fantastic. So the number of people who are already getting involved is exponentially higher than I think a lot of expectations. When Gigantic released their trailer, they had something like 300,000 views in the first week, and I can only imagine what that emotional elation is. Those are two words that can go together.
Sure, sounds right.
Yeah, it's political. I can only imagine how Motiga feels about this. And having had some conversations like we spoke last week with David Reed, who's new to Motiga, you can already feel his absolute commitment to the game and the community. And so it's just a fantastic thing. With that in mind, guys, we do these once every 2 weeks, Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So the next one will be on the 27th. I think I'll still be in Florida. Yeah, the 27th of October. So if you guys want to get involved, let me know. There's a sign up that Patrick's going to link into chat here in just a second. Thanks, buddy.
Sure, you're welcome.
You're welcome. Thanks. Make sure you do a couple of things though before we go. Make sure you click the follow button down there at the bottom of this Twitch. Make sure you also go over to GoGigantic on Twitch. Follow their channel. Follow us. GG
I'm still
underscore.
banned. I can't do anything.
Well, that's fine. Wow, you're really. I said you were on ban. It just does not like you.
Well, no, it's I have
I understand that.
seconds.
Oh, I won't drag this out for 187 seconds. I'll get the link.
I
But
can if you want me to.
no, you've already spoken for 47 minutes of the hour that we've gone. But make sure you hit follow on the Twitters. On the Twitters at GG Unleashed or at GG_Unleashed and at GoGigantic. Make sure you go over to the Reddit, follow them there. Just get involved. I know I had posted this a bit earlier. I think Motiga still got some jobs posted. Go to motiga.com/careers and look for some opportunities. I know they really need some fantastic talent to accent their already amazing talent. I'm brown nosing here. But thanks, guys. It's been an absolute blast. Fantastic discussion this evening. And make sure you guys jump in IRC and chat with us.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for coming,
Tim.
everybody. I had a blast.
Thanks, guys.
So long, and thanks for all the fish. Now we're going to sing.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Soft kitty, warm
No.
Oh, wow.
kitty, little no.
Straight out
It's
of
not-
Compton.
No.
Oh.
I'm just going to keep us live for a few minutes so we can sing. Let it go, let it go.
I am Lord. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. I really like the moon.